Oregon City, and we'll have a roll call, please.
Commissioner Neely.
Here.
Commissioner Nocita.
Here.
Commissioner West. Commissioner Smith.
Here.
Commissioner Crocker.
Here.
Commissioner Peterson.
Here.
Commissioner Shaw.
Here.
Commissioner Norris.
Aye. Here.
And Vice Chair Walters.
Here.
And Chair Slack.
Here.
Citizens' comments. Do we have any? We need fill out a slip. He's okay. You want to do it later? Come on, Ryan.
Raise your right hand and swear you'll fill out the form before you leave.
We just need the name and the city you reside
Checks in the
in.
mail.
The name and the city you reside in. So.
City of Oregon City.
And your name.
My name is Ryan Smith,
Okay. Thanks.
and I'm just coming here to give some developer perspective on this and concerned citizen perspective. And thanks for the opportunity to speak. I applaud you guys for kind of retooling this thing. I hope it gets retooled to make redevelopment even that much more of a activity in Oregon City. First thing that I really like about this is, I'm going to talk about what I really like first, and then I'll tell you what
And you're
concerns me.
talking about the design or the
I'll
grant.
let you know what I'm talking about.
No, what's the document you're talking about?
I got all sorts of documents
Oh, okay.
that I got. It seemed like there was 4 or 5 attachments in this email chain. So
The main topic is the storefront grant. Is that what you're discussing?
On grant improvement.
yes, storefront grant.
That's what I was asking.
Okay, so I like the $30,000 improvement because what you're seeing downtown is we've kind of started to pick away at all the little buildings, and what we've got now is a bunch of big ones left yet to do, and they're going to be really expensive, and so the $30,000 is relative to what we've got left to fix. So I think that's a good suggestion. Should the URC assign another grant to Main Street for signs? Absolutely, yes. The proof's in the pudding. You guys gave Main Street the money, and Lloyd did a great job, and everybody else going out, and there's a bunch of beautiful new signs or improved old signs down there. So I think that was a really good use of that money. So I wouldn't see any reason why that would not happen again. The other thing, should members of the URC be prohibited from receiving grants? Why would they? If there's members on this committee that are investing money and taking risks, then they're eligible for the grant. So if somebody can recuse themselves from the vote, but they shouldn't be penalized because they're on this board. The board's lucky to have somebody like Rob on there that's redeveloped a lot of these buildings, because he's going to bring insights to this committee that are important. So I don't think that they should be prohibited from participating. One of my main concern on this is the idea of maybe taking this grant application to 3 times a year. When a developer is looking at something and they're going to buy a building, their carrying cost is going to be one of the main things that they're taking into consideration. And so it's already kind of a lengthy process, and you can't start the project until the grant's already been approved, and you've got to post 30 days before and 30 days after, and then you've got to get your plans and go just to get in front of the commission. So you've already got 3 or 4 months of carrying costs sitting out there. Now, what if that person came right at the tail end of one of these 3 times? Then now you've just added another 4 months on top of that. So what you're doing is just delaying improvement to Oregon City. So I think that's a bad idea, and that's the one that concerns me the most, because you want to, if somebody's willing to come in this town and spend money and invest in redevelop a building, let's help them. Let's help them do it. Let's not throw another delay or roadblock in the way that's just going to add to their cost, and maybe they don't do it. Also, the other thing to consider is there's just certain times of year in construction, there's certain times of year you can do stucco and paint, and by limiting how many times, you can come in for that, you're going to maybe put them out of a construction window that's important for them to be in. The other suggestion that I had, one other concern. There's some criteria in here that would have this committee weigh in on handicapped access. This is a facade grant program. The city's got a building official and a building department and a planning department, and they've all got things set in place to make sure that when somebody does anything to a building, that they're going to comply with all the rules and regulations that are out there. So it seems out of place for this group to be, that you don't need to really worry about that, because the city system that you have in place is going to not allow for somebody to do something inappropriate regarding handicapped access. So it just seems like an extra hurdle that's unnecessary there that is a concern. Finally, the other thing is, I'm a guy, I love to spend money, and I think that the $100,000. How long has that been in place? Does anybody know? I mean, when did the $100,000 allowance? Was that been 10 years or?
I think that was a function of budget more than anything else.
Right.
I mean, we allocated partially on what we thought we'd have to commit to the cove and what we thought we'd have to commit to the river. Some of that, in fact, may change in the next budget cycle. But that was really driven more by that.
Because what I'm kind of looking at is, if it was 10 years ago, how long ago was ago? My whole point in this is that redevelopment has come to another level, and that $100,000 might not be commensurate now with the level of activity that is taking place. And if you raise, say you raise and you're going to award $30,000 to a couple of the bigger buildings, and you got 3 apps and you're done. So I would just ask that you guys would consider now, 2010. A lot of great things are taking place in these urban renewal areas, and that you might look at, $250 now, because that's going to foster redevelopment.
I don't have a question, but I have a comment. Ryan, my personal view on all of this is that rather than debating whether we want to have storefront grants at a level of $100,000 or $250,000. Personally, I want to see us rethink urban renewal completely to the point where we are actually considering more substantial investments as an urban renewal commission in the rehab of those larger buildings. Be it the Bank of Commerce building, be it the Masonic Temple.
Right.
I mean, a lot of these buildings, I don't think, unless we get a handle on those key buildings, and what they need, for example, as far as seismic upgrades, et cetera, I do think urban renewal has a role to play in that. So, the amount of what we're considering as far as storefront grant, that's really not the point to me. The point is how we're conceptualizing the mission of urban renewal downtown.
Okay.
So that's just.
I appreciate that. And you guys do have I did put in, I'm an Elk member, and I did put in for an application, and I think I can't remember what I asked for, but I think I asked for 30 or 35 or something, somewhere up there. And there again, is like Jim said, that's a huge building. I think it's 65,000 square feet. It's just a monster, and it's right on Highway 99. And sooner we can fix up 99 is the sooner we're going to pull cars off 99 and go, hey, what's going on Main Street? So that's exciting. So that application's in. As soon as you guys get it in, I got everybody lined up, and I promise you, I will make you proud. And that building is going to be a lot better looking building, and hopefully that maybe sets the stage for the other big buildings. I hope to get that done. So I really appreciate. It's always nice to be able to come here and speak my mind, and I applaud you guys for what you're doing. And I think this is a really good program, and I think it's good that we revisited it, and let's make it better.
Commissioner Neely.
Don't want to leave the impression that the commission is full of facade improvements. At least I'm not. one of the things that came up, and it's somewhat related to what Commissioner Nacita referred to, was that I wasn't thinking so much of seismic things, but where the facade we want to bring it to is actually corresponds to the historical nature of the facade before. It may in fact be more expensive than even if we come up with this maximum per individual than we had before. And one of the things I'm going to be bringing up, and actually we discussed it doesn't seem to be in here, is to actually make that distinction. If you're in fact striving to do a restoration effort, which is probably more expensive, I would like to see a larger maximum amount associated with that particular effort.
Sure, and I agree with that, because I think if the city's going to impose these historical, I won't call them sanctions, but, to a guy with his checkbook out, that's what they feel like. And I think it's important. I do think it's important for the city to recognize if you're going to throw these high ideals out there, don't make them too high or not support them with extra money to reach those ideals, because it's still a profit venture also for the investor, not just keeping history preserved. So I think that's a good perspective on that, because you got high ideals, you kind of got to match them somehow.
Commissioner Smith?
I was just going to comment on the ADA accessibility question. I as far as I remember looking through this, that's just more of how is it dealt with visually.
I see.
So in terms of this, the guidelines was, is the ramp going to be something that just takes away from the building itself? So I think that's, I couldn't find it again when I'm looking for it, but I think that's really what it was talking about.
That makes a lot of sense then. I was just concerned that we were getting that confused with.
I think that's all I was.
A lot of these questions are probably after we have a staff presentation. We're going to
Sure, and I don't want to call you guys. I just wanted to come here and
just know if he was going to
Betty
stay
Schaffner,
around.
who's on the TAC, has asked to speak, so I don't know where she went, but
It's right here.
is that you?
That is me.
Mr. Norris.
I just want to remind everybody that we did discuss multiple alternative options at our urban renewal retreat. Storefront being perhaps the smaller grants, and we discussed what to do with the larger facilities, whether that would be a loan and grant or whether it's going to be some other different kinds of alternatives. But I think that we're beginning to recognize that we need lots of different ways to fund things. So, and we also don't have this one up, so we can look at the documents yet. But appreciate your comments, because it's good to hear from those who are actually doing the building rehab.
You bet. And I'm just a member of the Elk, so I'm not buying that building just to dispel any rumors. I'm just a member of the Elk, and I'm just, that's my civic contribution to the Board of Trustees said, okay, Ryan, you've done a couple of them down here, you're going to be our representation, so.
I think Colin Miner just filed the fact that you bought the building with me. Or
Okay, let's move, do we have any other citizens' comments? No. Let's move on to, thank you, to future agenda items.
Cold drinks at the verdict tonight.
Free?
Commissioner Smith.
Future agenda items? Seeing none. Adoption of the agenda? Any changes? So we don't need a motion, do we? Do we just don't have any changes there?
Withdraw my motion.
Okay. General business, storefront grant subcommittee recommendations. Item 5A.
Thank you, Commissioner Slack. I want to briefly update you on the meetings we've been having with the subcommittee of Commissioner Walters and Commissioner Smith and myself. In your packet, you have a number of attachments. I think Ryan kind of was a good teaser to some of the big issues that we talked about. And those, I'll go ahead and outline. If you go to the first attachment where we talk about the Urban Renewal Commission Storefront Improvement Program application process and requirements, what you have there is a strikeout version of some of the changes that we made to that document. And I'm going to hit the highlights. The addition of both a purpose and a method or process statement was added. And again, that was to get at the intent of the program And the purpose is to improve the appearance and curb appeal of buildings and the streetscape in the downtown urban renewal district, thereby improving the marketability of the district in terms of economic vitality and attractiveness to new investment. And then also the process that provides grants to businesses and commercial property owners in the urban renewal district for rehabilitating their storefronts to eliminate blight, enhance livability, and revitalize commercial areas. So that's the general goals that we saw as important to this program. So the first one you see changes the maximum grant amount, and actually Ryan mentioned this, is that we're recommending going from what was a cap of $10,000 to $30,000 per project, and that all projects require at least a 50% match. In terms of eligible improvements, we had a lot of discussions about what would be eligible, and one of the things that came up were awning signs, and I think the intent there was to discourage or actually not allow the use of grants for awning signs, and the thought was there, if you have a tenant name on an awning sign and then you change tenants in a matter of months, then all of a sudden your awning sign has no value. So that was eliminated as a possible eligible improvement. We also discussed removing using these grants for planning fees, for permit fees, and for SDC fees. There was a real intent that that money be specifically for the facade improvement. Let's see. I think I'll move you to page 2 of 4 on the application where we talk about a new number 4. And again, this is a change the committee recommended, which was limiting the times grants are considered to 3 times a year. As you know, it's done pretty much ad hoc right now whenever we get a project. And some of the thinking there was by limiting the times of year those grants come in, it gives us a better gauge to compare grants to other grants, because you'd be considering more than one grant at one time, so you'd have that relative comparison of projects. So, and that probably the most substantial addition to this criteria is on page 3 of 4, where we talk about the approval criteria. We specifically didn't have any reference to approval criteria, and we've come up with 5. Number 1 is the project must be consistent with the Main Street guidelines. And there's a lot more detail on this that I'll get into a little later, but that's a big one. Number 2, the project improves the aesthetic and curb appeal of the building, surrounding area, and urban renewal district in general. Number 3, the project adds assessed value to the district. Number 4 is the degree to which the project exceeds the minimum match requirement. So the thought is there, if someone comes in with a project and they're willing to provide more than their required match, that should be recognized. Number 5, whether the applicant was a previous grant recipient and the success of his previous project at meeting the goals. So those are all, again, a fairly specific criteria that the committee thought should be added to reviewing the grants. The next thing I would want to point out is the second attachment. That is the evaluation matrix, I guess you could call it. And this is really a better way to keep track of the scoring of the projects. And those 5 approval criteria I just mentioned are listed there. And this is a way to score projects, be a little more systematic about it. So each one of those 5 criteria would get a grade. For example, 1 would be it doesn't meet the criteria, all the way up to 5 where it does an excellent job of meeting the criteria. And one question I think that we discussed a lot but never really came to any conclusion was the issue of weighting some of these criteria more than others. We thought that in general it would make things maybe a bit too complicated. But on the other hand, when you look at the Main Street guidelines and all the detail and work that went into those, maybe that's an area where we should add some more weighting, is if a project doesn't meet all those Main Street guidelines, that would give them an extra point count. The third attachment are the Main Street design guidelines. Now, these guidelines were initially produced by the Main Street Subcommittee on Design, and what we did is we went through those. There were, I think, some 41 criteria in the original list, and we reduced that number and only pulled out those that relate specifically to storefronts, because there's some of those guidelines didn't really relate to storefront. They were a lot more broad or generic. An example would be how you design your parking lot. And with these storefronts, we're not using storefront money to build or design parking lots, so you don't see that in here. What you do see are still a number of criteria, but we grouped them into different categories. The first one is building design and context with the surrounding buildings, and that gets a lot into compatibility with the existing built environment and historic context. The second major criteria is this category B, which we call building design elements, and the criteria are real specific in terms of the materials that would be used, the colors of the building, the scale, building materials, and the facade treatment, and then the issue of accessibility that was brought up earlier. And again, that whole ADA access issue is dictated by the building permit, but what we wanted to do is make sure that it's done well and it's compatible with the building itself. The third criteria has to do with doors and windows, and you can see these are really specific. It talks about the scale of windows and doors and how they relate to the entrance of the building and how they draw people into the building. So there's a lot of information on that. Section D has to do with roofs, so how the roofs appear from the street and how roofs can be used to hide, let's say, mechanical equipment and things like that. And then Section E has to do with lighting. G has to do with signs and signage. And I think the last one is sustainability. And also awnings. So all these criteria, in not all cases are all these criteria going to be applicable to a project. And obviously, if the project is to replace your windows, you're not going to have to deal with the issue of signs. So as whoever evaluates these criteria, there may be several instances where they don't apply. And then the last attachment is another sheet that actually helps the evaluator grade all these criteria. And you can see there's those different categories I mentioned, A through H, are listed here. And this is a way for, again, whoever evaluates each project to go ahead and list their scores for each of the different criteria. So this still needs a little bit of work, but I think we have our main ideas here. We could spend days and days talking about each one of the individual criteria. There's really a lot of detail here, but at this point I just wanted to present an overview, and if we want to get into some of the more salient details, we can do that.
Okay. Are you just looking for discussion, or are we looking to make a decision?
I think if you look at the commission report, I listed 5 questions that I think we all wanted some maybe agreement on, and they were the increasing the maximum grant amount from $10,000 to $30,000. That there's some agreement on the 5 criteria that are recommended here. That grants could not be used for city permit fees or SDCs. And the question of whether the URC wants to entertain another Main Street sign grant, where the decision to give those grants out would be left with the Main Street folks. And then the last one was, should members of the URC be prohibited from receiving grants? So those are some of the more, I guess, important topics that came up with the subcommittee, and we're looking for some direction from you.
Number 4, just to say, Main Street doesn't intend to go for any more sign grants. That was only an opportunity to leverage money we had from the state. And so, at least in the foreseeable future, if somebody wants to discuss it, that's fine, but it's not an intention of Main Street, so.
I don't think we were sure, yeah.
Oh, yeah, okay. So do you want to just give us some feedback then from the commissioners? And I have Commissioner Crocker wanting to speak, so.
Yeah, I think, I agree. I think the maximum grant from 10 to 30,000 is a good idea, especially on some of those bigger buildings. The 5 criteria, I think, I don't really have any problem with that. Grant cannot be used for city permit fees or SDCs. I think that's fine. I think that's good. The intent is to help with the physical nature, not worry about fees and permits. The whole another grant to Main Street for signs, I don't think is a that opportunity may or may not come up again in the next year, but maybe what we could do is say, hey, let's try and reserve some, because if Main Street's able to secure a different kind of grant, maybe for specifically for new paint or new awnings or new windows or energy efficiency or whatever, maybe what we could say is let's try and keep something in reserve so we can basically double up on any grant that maybe Main Street is able to secure. That might be an idea. We may or may not want to do that. In regards to members of URC being prohibited from receiving grants, I mean, obviously I've been a beneficiary of the program, and frankly, one of the main reasons I came to Oregon City, one of them, not but one of them was the opportunity to secure some of these storefront grant improvements. And my building partner, Chris, and I have now purchased and rehabbed 5 different buildings, and it's brought my company has grown from 4 full-time employees to 17, and we spend just my company, out of my company checkbook alone, we spend about $10,000 a year on the eating establishments. Lots of coffee, lots of lunches. That in and of itself, that has worked. These storefront grants have brought, and that's just one building, let alone the pizza place and Acquire training upstairs of the pizza place. These guys all came because those buildings were rehabbed. Now I wasn't on the Urban Renewal Commission at the time when those first 2 buildings were purchased, but I was on the commission when the last 2 were purchased, and those are being rehabbed from a sports bar, a dive that everybody agreed we needed less of, to something where we're getting a new Vietnamese restaurant and some other offices, some more attractive tenants. So I think if you have somebody like myself who's very vested in the well-being of Oregon City, I shouldn't be punished as long as I play by the rules and recuse myself for wanting to be a part of this committee and wanting to help Oregon City improve. So that's my comments on that. The only other thing I really wanted to talk about was the meeting 3 times a year. I think the intent is good, because we don't want to spend all our $100,000 in the first meeting and not have anything for anything else. But I think Ryan was right in that could potentially cause some significant problems with people trying to do rehabs, especially with weather and whatnot. Something that we might want to think about is, rather than saying, look, we're only going to look at these 3 times a year, maybe saying, look, we only want to spend half our budget the first 6 months, but we can still meet 6 times or 3 times or whatever, and we want to save half our budget for the last half of the year. Or maybe you do it quarterly, so we want to make sure we're only spending a quarter. But that way, people who are going to apply know that, okay, in this quarter they've already spent $10,000 of the $25,000 that they're going to spend, so I better get my application in quickly. But at the same time, if you're trying to build something, you can get it in, and so the process can keep moving, but you're not stuck with only meeting on April 1st and September 1st and October 1st or whatever it is. So that might be a way to look at it, is reserve a certain portion per quarter or per 4 months or biannually, rather than saying we're only going to take these three times a year, maybe what we do is just reserve pieces of the budget, so we know that there's always going to be at least some budget to go around. Something to think about.
One of the challenges with that is, what if you lost an opportunity for somebody in the beginning of the year and you don't have anybody applying at the end of the year? That's the only thing I think about when that. I mean, I know there must be a better way to do it, but anyway, Commissioner Neely.
There's a few editorial things I'll come to that later on, but whether we deal with it as something that gets greater weight in terms of criteria, or whether in fact we increase the upper level to deal with projects that are actually restoration in nature, I think is really important. I mean, it may be the difference between somebody pulling down some current siding and trying to restore the brickwork that's there versus doing some stucco thing on there instead. And I think we've got to leverage some of this money to direct it to restoration efforts, and whether that's done by I have no problem with increasing the amount, and we might be able to have really not much problem with that in the next budget cycle, depending on what transpires in the rest of the city. But I would like to really give an incentive to a person trying to make a decision whether they're going to put something over what's already there versus whether they're going to try to go back to the original facade or trying to reproduce the original facade. And so I'd like to see that built into it. I understand the issue on tenant signs. I'm wondering if, on the awnings, I wonder what historically has been the case of awnings, so if they put it up, do they advertise? And we might want to make a distinction between an applicant that is a tenant versus a applicant that in fact is the owner and proprietor of the property. That might give a greater guarantee of a longer term use of that particular awning. But if in fact it is a business of history there, I would assume, and I don't know this for a fact, but I would assume if you looked at some of the awnings in the past where the person that owned the property put up the awning, they probably told you on the awning who they were. I understand the concern, but maybe there's a mechanism of dealing with those that we are almost certain are going to be long-term business people there.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. I think, I'm coming back to my latter comment, where you have something that is truly a restoration effort. If it's truly a restoration effort, and I'm not saying the body would be a decision maker, but I would like to see recommendation coming from the Historic Review Board. Now, they're not making a decision, but the restoration nature is actually going to the Historic Review Board, and then and they can make a recommendation to us. They're not the decision-making body in this case. That's something else that you might want to give thought of.
Doesn't it happen now?
I don't think
I thought the process was sent through.
Almost none of those buildings are in local inventory, so nothing.
No, but I think that when we get the package, it says that that Christina has either passed it by the historic or has passed on historic nature of whatever the project is.
Yeah, well, so I think often she does make recommendations. Right. I'm saying the
but it
board
gets passed
itself,
by her, so.
Yeah, I think I'm not clear about that, but in any case, I don't see it in the body of the document here that we have.
Right now, I don't believe it's required.
Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Where they're restoration specific, I'd like the board to look at it.
That's a good point. Yeah.
The other thing is coming to this 3 times or 4 times a year. I mean, our pot of money is going to be limited, and to that extent, we may have competitive grants that we should be ranking. And I think it is reasonable. You have for a given, whether it's a quarter or whether it's every third of a year, you have a deadline in which they come in. And golly, if the pot of money is big enough, then that's one thing. But if the pot of money is not big enough, we ought to make an evaluation on the merit of the project. And so actually, I favor that. Do you want to hear my editorial comments?
You can email those to me.
Commissioner Smith.
Okay, I have a couple Well, I don't think I need to share little changes. There's some other little changes that I've noticed or I have questions about. But in terms of the four big questions, in most of these questions, like we said, we talked about them as a subcommittee. The increase, I think that's a good. I support that. Especially in light of the bigger buildings that are coming, and I think that that's going to be really crucial. The criteria I really support. I think in terms of the guidelines that I feel that there's kind of a lack of discussion about historic renovation and things like that, and I think that's just blatantly missing, and we need to make sure that that's a little bit more. I think even some of the ways we worded it, we kind of downplay its importance in here, and so I think I'd still like to see some work on that. I agree with not using grants to pay the fees or SDCs. The sign issue may be not an issue. Number 5 is the one that will be the discussion. I'm sure that will come up. I was the one that kind of mentioned it at first, and when it went over like a lead balloon, I kind of just backed off from it. But when the subcommittee met, the subcommittee pretty much reaffirmed that they believed that should happen, and that it was. And they can. I hope I'm not misspeaking, but we as a subcommittee felt that was probably a good decision, and that if members of this commission want to seek grants, they can do before or after serving on this commission. So I backed off a little bit on it, but I think that as a member of this commission myself, I would never dream of doing it. And so it kind of blows my mind that other people would. I do believe you're doing good things downtown, and I do believe you support downtown, but it just sends a mixed message to people about what we're doing with their money. So anyway, that's up for discussion. But I think we need to look at the restoration thing. I was going to just point out one. On page 9, or the historic building compatibility, on page 9 or 4 of 31 of the building, or the guidelines, it says downtown Oregon City has a great inventory of historic structures. Historic rehabilitation and preservation is a worthy goal, but then it attaches this big line to it. But total preservation of existing buildings may not always be financially viable, especially when buildings are not landmarks. Well, that's downplaying the importance of those buildings, I think, and we know that not any of those buildings in downtown are considered landmarks, but they're all historic buildings. One building, of course, that has been redone, which is the oldest building in the state, which is not listed in our, none of these buildings are listed in our inventories, and so I think we're doing a disservice to those buildings by saying just because they're not listed, they're not historic, because that's not true. And so I think we really need to play a more active role in, we aren't going to be able to control all of those changes to historic buildings, but we can sure say, if we spend our money, we'd rather see it spent to bring those buildings back, and we can point out projects that we think are more important based on that, so that it gives some incentive for these business owners to bring those buildings onto the historic register and keep these buildings. And I know at one point in some of this paperwork there was mention, I can't find it now, I don't know if it's not in there anymore, but in the guidelines it was to require the applicants to submit historic photos of the building to see what the building looked like, so that when we make decisions on the storefront grants that we see, is this a drastic change from what it was before and what it's going to be. And I really, in terms of the guidelines, I mean, some of these guidelines are amazing, but I think that's the one key part that I'm still not completely sure that we've done the best on. And so I guess that's it.
I have kind of a question about this issue of commissioners. I don't ever intend to ask for a grant, but I mean, how far does that get carried? I mean, if a commissioner is an architect, does that mean that he can't? I mean, somehow people can benefit in more ways than just owning buildings and be on this commission. So I mean, where do you stop as far as if an architect was a part of on the commission and was a part of a project down there, does that mean that shouldn't be funded? Because the
I don't
architect
know.
will get.
I'm not voting on the library. I think it's a determination of what you think is right. I don't think it's right.
Okay.
It's an individual thing. You
Commissioner
may
Norris?
think it's perfectly fine.
Commissioner Norris.
I want to speak to something a little bit different. The amount of the funding. I'm all in line that we give up to 10 grants of $100,000 to $100,000. If we're giving $30,000 grants, I worry that we'll have 3 that'll take it, and I would really like to see it separated. Or something. I was just off the top of my head, but to keep the $10,000 grants, because I think they do an awful lot of good, but to have a bigger pot of money that's only for bigger grants. Maybe there's a ceiling of building worth, or maybe it's I don't know what it cost a project or something, but I'm just concerned that 3 projects a year, maybe they will make a big impact, but why wouldn't you ask for 30?
I was wondering whether the criteria couldn't somehow suggest a bigger amount basis of different kind of thing you were doing, rather than have a separate class. But I don't know. You know, that might be complicated.
I know.
Because I think there should be a differentiation. I agree. So. Is that Rob? Commissioner Crocker.
Just for the record, I don't know how everybody else feels about the urban renewal commissioners being able to apply or not. I think as long as it's completely above board and I recuse myself or anyone, or if Graham's working with somebody and they're applying, if he recuses himself, I don't think there's any problem with that. And I stopped actually to do a little tally, and as a direct result of the storefront improvement grants that I've benefited from, direct result, 40 full-time employees downtown and 17 part-time. As a direct result. Our property taxes just on the first building that we did went from plus or minus $2,000 a year to plus or minus $7,000 a year. Basically, we're going to pay back in 2 years the entire amount of that grant in increased property taxes. And that's just on one building. So if the intent of this urban renewal district is to stimulate the activity in eliminating blight, to stimulate the activity of recruiting new businesses, new employees, new business owners, new building owners, new interest in Oregon City, I think it's done a great job, and I don't see why, if somebody isn't playing by the rules, why they shouldn't be able to participate.
Mr. Neely?
I don't see why they shouldn't be able to participate either. I think maybe what we need to do is, I don't know what you call an ethical clause here, that anybody applying for grants cannot lobby members of the commission here. I think it may not be intentional, but I think it'd be very easy to be put in a position where you're in the Main Street area. It's a small area, and you start talking to people about what you want to do. If in fact the commissioner, an urban renewal commissioner, can simply say to the individual, "I'm sorry, I cannot talk to you either about the design or anything else because I'm going to be a decision maker." And so I think it's really an ethical issue, and there might be something that you can do to talk about that particular ethical issue. The city manager wants to address that particular item. That's okay.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, you're probably working an issue that's already been worked. Oregon ethics law, again, if you have a direct conflict of interest and you participate in that, you definitely have put yourself in an interesting position, which you could be fined and that could be pretty steep in that case. So I think those laws speak to that, and if you have that direct impact.
Something that needs to really be discussed every time in terms of orientation, that we have new urban renewal commissioners coming on board here.
Are you- Commissioner West.
I kind of saved my points to the end so I could try to respond to some of the ones previous. Just as a point of clarification in the language of this whole document or this whole process tonight, are we referring to these grants for the whole urban renewal area or just Main Street? So I was a little unclear on that.
It's the complete district, urban renewal district.
Okay, so not just downtown.
So, a question on that, are you applying the guidelines that were developed for downtown to the whole district? Because that was confusing to me.
That's the way it is now. That's what you have. They'd be applied across the board.
Just a point of process, because we could go into, I could say, I don't care about that there's, we take out landscaping. I don't care about, the signs or the signs on awnings. But we really haven't even, or Main Street hasn't even formalized their design guidelines, but we're using them as a working document tonight. So my thought is that we could maybe get this program off to a start, and maybe, just a starting point, and refine some of those little details, because I could go on and on tonight about, neon. I kind of like neon, could be used in creative ways, but, I think that the point is to get moving. As far as the wait time, I think I would like to reiterate what my other counselors said. Construction has kind of I've remodeled enough to know that construction has a sequential process, and I think that we'd be holding them up. So I would like to not have a quarterly thing. I'd like it to be as open as possible. The $30,000 grants, I think we're leveraging more money on 10 projects a year than 3 projects at $30,000. Not that you wouldn't encourage bigger ones. So I'm game to have the $30,000, and as time goes on, a new city manager, new budgets, we could maybe look to adding other categories, broader and deeper categories, to encourage historic preservation or renovation of some of those larger buildings. But for the time being, I'd like to see it at $10,000. Let's see, what else do I have here? As far as being on the board, getting a grant when you're on the board. So in my time here in the 4 years, everyone has recused themselves, and I think it would be just very similar to a city councilor that's a developer or a realtor or a business owner. There's many things that happen on city council, and so you recuse yourself when you're involved in an issue, and I think that's how it should be handled here on urban renewal as well. You don't tell people that they're developers they can't run for city council. So I think of all my comments tonight, I would like to see, I would hope we can come to some kind of consensus to get this program restarted as soon as possible, and that to take some of these design guidelines as just a starting point and a review in 6 months or a year or whatever everyone would like to do, and or whatever else would see fit. So thank you.
Ms. Ide, his CRT says Graham Peterson's next to speak, and mine says Nancy Walters. Oh, okay. Well, then it went right. Okay. You caught us. Commissioner Walters.
It's really great to get all the comments. It's really tough to do a one-size-fits-all, and I know we're working with a pretty small budget, and we were trying to accommodate a lot of requests that have come in for larger projects and different schedules and all that kind of thing. So I'm glad we're having the discussion. And I just wanted to talk about a couple things. One, the ethics. From my personal perspective, I feel that serving on Urban Renewal Commission is a public service, and that just to the citizens of Oregon City to promote high ethical standards, that again, it's a personal decision, but I just feel that I don't need to benefit personally, and I don't need my family members to benefit personally when I'm serving on the Urban Renewal Commission, and that if I did want to pursue a grant, I don't think it would be I wouldn't feel it was appropriate for me to do that. And I understand we all have different points of ethics, and I'm not going to argue it, but that's where I'm coming from on it. It's also consistent with the line of work that I'm in. That there's a real kind of prohibition against personal benefit when you're operating making role. So that's where I'm coming from on it. As far as the number of times that we meet to hold decisions on how many grants get awarded, what amount of money. We've all been at meetings where we've had people come in and they haven't been able to make. We haven't been able to make a decision because we run out of time. And also, I like the idea of being able to prioritize our funds so that we can match our funds with the highest priorities. And it's difficult to do that when they're coming in randomly and we don't even know when we're going to be, seeing one versus the next. I mean, we don't know which one is around the corner. I feel that, when you're involved in a construction project, you have a project schedule. And if you're going in for grant funds, you plan. It's a predictability for them. I mean, it actually adds some level of predictability when they can say, okay, in order to meet these schedules, we have to put in our grant application at this time in order to begin. And we can schedule those dates around, what are considered to be ideal construction decision periods. So just to consider that aspect to it as we're making our decisions. Thank you.
Mr. Neely.
Yeah, I'm going to come back to that same point. If we get this in a form that can apply, I would have no problem releasing whatever amount, 13,000 or whatever it is, it's still available in this particular fiscal year, and have that ground. What is it? 16,000. What's available in this particular fiscal year. I think the concern that I had is we had no criteria. We got criteria coming forward. I have no problem in dealing and putting forward the monies and have somebody come forward. I regard this as something that would be implemented in the next funding time, which would be in the next budget year. The point we ran into, I mean, the reason I think we're all talking about doing it 3 or 4 times a year with fixed dates is we essentially ran out of money in the 6 months. That's one of the reasons we did it. And we increased the pot. We just might end up having a lot more people interested with good projects. And if that's the case, if we're getting more projects than we have money for, then they should be competitively ranked. And we don't know, because the money was pretty much dissipated, whether we would have had a greater project coming in this year that we never heard about. And so allocating them a certain amount of money quarterly or every third year or whatever works, and then have a competitive cycle on it, I think is the best way to proceed.
Commissioner Shaw.
Curious how we got to the $30,000 figure from the $10,000. Since this is kind of going to be a new little element for us, why didn't we go to 20,000 or something like that, or even 15,000? Make a little gradual process instead of all of a sudden tripling this.
Want to explain how that works?
Yeah, it was extremely scientific.
Someone said, what about 30?
It's top secret. No, actually, we've seen some applications, and one of them was Ryan's actually with the Elks, where, you have a private individual putting in, sometimes as much as $100,000, and the thought was, well, if they're going to make that big of a commitment into a building, then maybe, we should consider more than 10. And a lot of the grants that we've issued in the past have been pretty small buildings. Some of them just 1 story, some of them 2 stories. And so when you get into these 3, 4-story buildings like the Elks, with pretty big footprints, that was the thought. We wanted to have that option. So there's actually nothing too scientific about it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Also, in terms of,
Go ahead, I'm sorry.
So the Historic Review Board is not involved with anything we're doing downtown? I know we have these significant buildings, but the Historic Review Board, what's their part in this?
They only are required to be involved if it's a building on the register, and I think we only have one building.
See, that doesn't make sense. We got the Oregon City Historic Review Board that...
And I think that's a bigger question, too, because, as I mentioned earlier, these design criteria, we only pulled out the ones we thought would pertain to storefronts. But the whole bigger question of design and the role of the HRB, I think, is a whole other process.
And I hate to throw that another element into this process, but, you know, we've got a few groups already involved with this, and now we want to throw HRB into this. But it seems like, they've been around since 1980, and I would think, here's the historic downtown of Oregon City, and the Oregon City Historic Review Board is not even involved.
I mean, it raises a question. I've worked in communities where there was a special review board just for projects downtown. So any project that came in for a building permit was reviewed by a design review board. And in this case, it could be the HRB, but that's a whole different program, and it raises a lot of questions in terms of Oregon law, whether their recommendations can actually be held up in law, especially when you get into some of these softer design criteria that don't have specific standards. But I mean, it is something we could investigate as a process.
There is historic on the design review committee for downtown, and who's gonna go ahead? Anyway, and you have some other questions or other comments?
I just had one other thing, too, was if a person applies for a grant and they receive some money, knowing that we're under maybe a time frame now, so they apply, they think, well, I'm going to do this project probably in the third quarter, but I'm going to apply for it in the first quarter. Do they get their money in the first quarter, even though it's, is there some way, do you monitor these funds and when they're going to be spent?
When they give receipts from the work being completed.
Reimbursements.
So it's not given up front. Okay, Commissioner Ely?
Well, I want to come back to the Historic Review Board. I think we can make a distinction of when they can become involved. I was not suggesting, and I don't think you were either, they'd have any veto power, but their opinion might end up in affecting a ranking we might give to a project. Now, my recollection, if it's correct, is that for buildings or to go on to our local historic register, they have to be at least 50 years old. And we may want to make that particular designation. We're talking about a more recent building or something of that nature, that we wouldn't have to necessarily put it through that process. But if it's at least 50 years old, then we might want to say we'd like some input. And that's all we're asking for, input from the Historic Review Board. And it may affect our ranking system, or it may not, depending on what those recommendations are and the composition of the commission at the time.
Commissioner Crocker.
Yeah, I want to weigh in on that as well. Yeah, we do. We already have the guidelines from the design committee on Main Street, and I think, man, you go to Historic Review Board, then what's next? Do you want to talk to the ADA, or do you want to talk to? I mean, and I'm not downplaying the importance of the historical significance, but if we're doing this and we're doing a rating system, and the rating system clearly indicates, all these building design elements, doors and windows, roofs, lighting, signs, I mean, that takes into account hopefully anything that the Historic Review Board is going to want to talk about, unless there's, some historic event happened at a location. And I mean, it's just, you're adding more hurdles to the process, and at some point, a developer is going to say, this isn't worth $10,000, screw this, I'm just going to do whatever the heck I want because I can. And we're deterring people from doing development as opposed to encouraging. I understand the intent is to make sure good, responsible development and rehab is done as much as possible, but why not get the Historic Review Board together with the Design Review Committee up front and make sure that any questions or concerns that they would have are going to be on that list, as opposed to making another hurdle for a potential developer to go over.
Commissioner West.
Rob, you said that pretty good, so I don't know if I can do any better on that, but I was thinking we're kind of confusing two processes. Or one, I don't mind if the Historic Review Board comments on things, but then the way to do that would be from Urban Renewal Commission to get City Commission to ask the city to review their, to have the Historic Review Board or staff review which buildings should be on the local register. But at this point, if they're not on the local register, then the process for historic review or architectural integrity would be to go to the Main Street guidelines. And so so if you weren't going to do that, review which buildings and put them on a local inventory, then I agree with how Rob said, that's what I was thinking. Then the next thing is to have HRB working hand in hand with Main Street so that the Main Street guidelines reflect those values, and which I thought had been that's been the process all along. I know Denise McGriff, a lot of your design committee is Historic Review Board, and so. But I don't think it's not Urban Renewal Commission's place to put properties on historic, on the historic, the register.
Now, I guess, let me give a few of my comments that I've gotten here, so.
Speaker two. Did you see that?
Well, she said that she doesn't want to speak.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I do. You do want to speak. I thought you were going, I don't know. I misread your, whatever.
You do not read her visual cues.
My apologies to Commissioner Neely. I've been sitting back there shaking my head no again. Karen Morey, I live outside the city of Oregon City. However, I am on the Design Review Committee, and I'm currently on a subcommittee reviewing some of the larger structures. I'm not going to try to quote the charge of the Historic Review Board, but I want to try to set something straight. The Historic Review Board is responsible for reviewing the two designated historic districts, which are Kenema and McLaughlin, and any structure designated currently as historical. Main Street has been reviewed by SHPO thoroughly in 1983 and 2000. They did a drive-by review in 2009. If you read the individual building inventories, most of the buildings on Main Street have been so heavily remodeled over the years for different commercial uses, they no longer qualify. There are a few specifically designated buildings that if you really, really put money into them and took them back, you might be able to put them on the inventory. Rob's building, Caulfield House, is considered the oldest standing commercial building on Main Street, or Ryan's, excuse me. That building was taken down to the basement and a portion of the first floor in the 30s due to a fire and substantial damage. It's not restorable. The Masonic Temple, the Bank of Commerce, the Commercial Club, Bush's, Myers at 6th and Main, are probably the most redeemable buildings according to SHPO. They're the closest to their original structure. Those are some of the ones that have been designated as the major buildings. But until those buildings are restored to a state that SHPO finds at an appropriate historic point, they cannot be designated as historic buildings. They do not fall under HRB. The Main Street Design Review Committee, I think, was formed to kind of compensate for the fact that, no, the buildings on Main Street aren't going to fall under that designation. The buildings on Main Street are living buildings. Main Street is a living commercial street. There are buildings there which started somewhere in the 1850s, 1860s, up to buildings built in the 1960s. I read a wonderful book recently about urban design, and they were talking about buildings talking to their neighbors. Each building being respected for what it is, the period of time in which it was created, but to be restored to a point where it talks to the building next door. The other day I was standing at Mi Familia, and I have got to commend Rob and Ryan. The stretch from 7th to 8th on Main Street is beautiful on one side at the moment. Rob originally I'm not sure about the first building, dear, that you restored. As he's gone along, he is respecting each building for what it is and bringing it back to the best building that it can be. Main Street needs to be respected for what it is. The Urban Renewal Commission is responsible for two distinct areas. The McLaughlin neighborhood is a designated historic district. A portion of that is in the Urban Renewal Commission. Main Street is a separate entity. I really think that Main Street, as an organization, should be responsible for those design guidelines. And I like the idea of increasing the money, but I want you to not miss the little guys. There's still a lot of little buildings in both of those areas that need those matching grants. The subcommittee working on the larger buildings will be looking for other funding. I communicated with Dan about any ideas he might have. If you set aside additional funding for those larger buildings, that would help, but I wouldn't want to see that money go away to the large projects because there's lots of little buildings that still need to come back to what they were.
Thank you. Commissioner Neely.
Well, I think probably Ms. Murray has actually given us a way of dealing with that. We can look at which of those buildings that SHPO looks at, and perhaps those specific buildings, if a design requests come before us, those are the ones that meet a higher standard, and I think it might be a mechanism. I don't think there's anything precluding Historic Review Board from coming on board. They just don't have decision-making capabilities in this particular case. I may be wrong, but I think there are individuals outside those districts that have requested and done the research and had their homes put on the local inventory, and once that has happened, and I don't think there have been many, but once that has happened, even if they're outside of those districts, they then have to go through the procedures.
Okay, and I was going to go through my comments that I've got here. I have under ineligible improvements, we've got parking lot or paving improvements. I know one of the things that the Lakota group, when they came through and did the study of downtown, they said you've really got to look hard at improving the landscaping and the look of your parking lots. That sends a real negative message about your downtown and that hardscape. So, if a parking lot owner wanted to come through and put landscaping and some other stuff in it, I think that could be a real addition, like a storefront addition would be as well. On the $30,000 amount, I've been in favor of trying to do that for larger buildings. One of the things I don't see here that I would like to see is some criteria that means you're going to get $30,000, because I don't think the guy that normally would have got 10 should think that he can apply for 30. Somehow there needs to be a differentiation of, restoring the historical. You're not going to restore it to its historical original state, but anything that brings it back, a large building back to look more historical, or what, I don't even know enough to say what those criteria are, but there ought to be something that makes it clear that this is what qualifies for the bigger amount, and it's not just because now you want to spend $30,000 instead of $10,000. So, on the I really like the idea of trying to rank these. My problem is I think there is a good time of the year for construction, and so when I hear 3 times a year, I think of 3 equal times, and I'm thinking that, maybe like something, this is just an example, maybe July 15th and September 1st or something, so that somebody who wants to really do a project and get it done while there's good, and then maybe another time later on, so that you kind of compress those, but give people an opportunity to get that construction done in the better times. Back on approval criteria, the project adds assessed value to the district. How do you measure that? I'm not sure if I were looking at it. I think it's a good criteria. It's a good thing to put in there, but how would we, if we're grading this, understand whether it was going to do that? And so anyway, those are my comments. And I think that we've done a lot of good work here as far as we've gone. And I do, as Doug mentioned, hope that we can move forward and spend the rest of the money we have in the budget for this year and try to refine these to begin in fact, we shouldn't wait till the beginning of the year. Hopefully, we could have these guidelines in advance of the beginning of the new year so that 2 or 3 months in advance, when somebody wants to start the process, they see what the final guidelines are. So, Commissioner Walters.
Oh, did
He's not showing us next, so.
Just wanted to support the concept of landscaping and the hardscaping improvements. I think, again, we're looking at $100,000, and, there seemed to be a lot of demand for higher value, so, we went to 20, and then we went to 30 within the subcommittee, and I totally support landscaping projects, and I think, but again, I maybe, we are talking about maybe another program here. Again, we have to target the money to the purpose of the grant. And I like your comment about, how do we measure assessed value? Maybe we need to do some refinement on some of that, so that's good. Thanks.
Commissioner Peterson.
Yes, I've got a few comments. I'll just go through recommended actions. Talking about the maximum grant amount, I think that we need to have a mechanism for dealing with larger projects, but kind of echoing what Don's saying, the ability to not have that 10,000 grant applicant that we're used to be able to go after these 30,000 and really be able to, have a prerequisite that allows a project to get into that $30,000 range. So that would be my input there. As far as number 2, the only issue there, page 3 of our approval criteria, the project must be consistent with Main Street guidelines. It was my understanding that Main Street guidelines were we were meant to see how well they fit Main Street guidelines rather than if they do exactly. So that would be my only comment there. And then going to the 3 times yearly process, I understand the value in stacking projects so we can rate them side by side. But having done development applications and going through the city process, the holding cost, the cost to the person, let's assume somebody just picked up a project, maybe it's an owner user, and they want to renovate the building for their use, and they've just picked the building up. Now they've got holding costs, so they're paying their mortgage over, we're looking at, if we're doing 3 times yearly, this could be up to 120 days out. At worst case scenario, that's up to 4 months where they're holding that mortgage before they can even begin, see that they've got that grant approved and begin construction. So it's just there's pros and cons, and I don't know if we look at having one that's, extending that from 3 to 4 or 5 a year, but maybe not 12 a year. So I just I know it's a difficult issue, and I just have concerns with limiting it to that few. Let's see. The other comment that I have is, I know Lloyd put out a letter to us about lifting this hold on the 09-010 funds that we have, and we're really coming into a season where construction can start happening, and to hold back projects. I know that one good example is we've got a really opportune time with the Elks 75th anniversary, and if that's a project that we're going to push forward, and I'm sure there's more like this, so that you just come across time periods where it's just the right time, and if we've got projects, we're just putting them on hold right now, and I'd like to see some of those move forward. So I would ask that we consider lifting that on our 2009-2010 budget. And that is it.
Mr. Smith.
Just one really quick comment about the, of course, we can't decide which buildings are on the historic register, but we can decide which buildings use our money, and if we think that that's a primary focus, then we can dictate that. So I think we can come up with incentives to encourage businesses and owners to get to a point where they want to put them on the register, and we can be the advocate for doing that. Landscaping, the problem we've had with that really is how do we, we're asking that this money be put into an investment that's going to last 5 years, and I don't know how, you maintain landscaping up to 5 years or beyond. That's going to be a tough one. And in terms of parking lots, we've got sidewalks not on the list and items related to business operations on the list. And to me, that's a parking lot. Parking lot is related to business operations. It's not a storefront. And I think, so I still have issues with those too.
Okay, what do we want to do? You've got enough comments? Mr.
That'll keep us busy.
We'll come back next year.
Okay, Commissioner Crocker.
Yeah, I agree. I think we need to move this thing. Let's do something. We've been waiting for quite a while, and yeah, we do have people waiting and would like to get some construction, or at least apply for some grant money. I would like to make a formal proposal, I guess, in the form that we do, rather than 3 times a year, that we do 5 times a year and stack it so it's more in the middle of the construction season. So say we review March, May, July, September, and then wait till maybe December or January. So you have one time in the winter when people aren't really doing much, but stack the other reviews. March, which is at the beginning, May, July, and then September is that's kind of the end of the construction season where you could potentially get something done in September, October, but it seems like the period from November through February, there's usually not much going on. So I'd like to just submit that we think about that. If we did it 5 times a year, you could have, the nice thing is, if you wanted to split it up, you'd have $20,000 per, but if you didn't get it in March, and maybe you wanted to go back and fix some things, you'd be able to reapply it within 60 days, which would be nice. So you could come back in May if you still wanted to go after it. Maybe you made some changes to your design or whatever. So even though we'd only be awarding potentially 2, if they were $10,000 matches, it wouldn't take that long if somebody wanted to modify their proposal, so they could qualify for a grant that they could come back in 2 months rather than waiting another 4 months to get something done.
Mr. Neely.
Since I've never made these kinds of investments, I'm a little caught short. My concern is if you break up the pool that way, you really have not very much money to allocate. And I think rather than do that, I mean, I'm more than willing to hear the people that are in the actual have done this kind of thing state that 2 or 3 times during the season it should occur to meet the construction season. I think that's fine. But to have it stagger 2 months after each other with a small pot of money concerns me. I would look for your advice as to maybe when the 2 critical times in the season are. And that's what I would suggest.
Maybe rather than trying to micromanage that tonight, you've heard our ideas. Maybe you can come back with a couple of options.
Sure.
So, do we want to take any action on moving forward on funding for the balance of? Somebody mentioned Elks, and I don't think there's enough in the pot left for what they're asking for. But Commissioner Walters,
I would like to recommend that we consider using the evaluation criteria and the design guidelines and accept another round of applications through whatever deadline that I guess Nancy Crushauer's office is hosting, and maybe we can see if we could, we could kind of implement it using the evaluation criteria, but not changing the grant program guidelines yet, and then maybe we can implement the grant program guidelines, so at least that way we can award projects and use the ranking and evaluation features, and then maybe continue to work on some of the decisions and try to implement those and hopefully get maybe more money and maybe even try to segregate the program into some different areas too.
Suggestion or motion?
I guess it's a motion that...
Isn't there a motion and second now?
This
side, did you get all that?
So I guess the motion is just to use the evaluation criteria for now with the existing program, and then...
Might be a good way to work the bugs out, huh? See what works and what doesn't. Okay, if you're okay with that, okay. Commissioner Smith, you had...
You're saying the criteria, just the 5 criteria, or the actual guidelines?
The design guidelines and the evaluation.
Right, but I don't think we've agreed on what we've proposed for the guidelines yet. So if we're talking about the guidelines that we've brought to this commission tonight, we haven't made a decision on whether we agree on all these changes that are made there. Specifically, whether city STCs, permits, and all that have been used. Some people have commented on that, so there's changes here that have been made that I don't think we've come to a consensus on. Signs and graphics, landscaping. So I would hate to say we're going to use this criteria, because still, again, we haven't decided if we all agree on it.
About the rating sheets.
Well, that's what I was thinking, maybe just the rating sheets, but I guess, they come straight from the criteria, so.
Right.
Based on the criteria.
All right, so
We
you
got to
want
get it done. Let's wait till we get it done.
I'll withdraw the motion if I can, yeah.
Commissioner West.
I'd like to make a different motion. I'd like to move forward, or make a motion that we use or take whatever grant applications are in the pool right now and spend the remaining balance under the old criteria, because that was the criteria that they applied for this money under, and it's kind of like the rule of no changing the goalposts during the game. So, and then and have it as a goal from our new fiscal year to have this all in place.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. We have discussion? Oh, you get your finger up, but it's not showing.
My computer, I've been trying to get in. It's still.
Mr. Neely.
Just to kind of back up what I'm doing here. The issue here is $13,000. It's $16,000. It's not much. People made the application under the new guidelines. Really, I regard this as a mechanism of going to the next fiscal year. I think we've made enough advance in this so we know we're going to have new criteria going to the next fiscal year. And I think I'm the one that might have made the motion to freeze it at that point. But part of the reason for freezing it actually was to get us to a point where we were looking at these guidelines and so forth. I feel comfortable enough that we're going to have something prior to the next budget cycle. I feel comfortable with it.
Commissioner Smith, you had your finger up, but it didn't show up
It's
here.
on there now. I think I'm on there now. I'm not sure.
No.
Okay, so
Have you pushed the...
no, trust me. Every time I do something, it freezes up for
The
about
easiest way to
20,
do it is
10
to hit it
seconds,
when
20
it's
minutes.
on the floor. If you put it on the floor and hit it, it gets registered.
Yeah, I don't really need. So we're saying we're going to start this when?
Budget cycle. So what is that, July 1st?
July 1.
July 1,
I
is
thi-
the
I mean,
new budget. We
changing-
only have 16,000 left out of
Right.
this year, and so we could even just spend the 10 and we'll carry the 6 over. That's not a problem for me, because, or spend it all.
To me, that is changing the goalposts in the middle of the game, because we froze that, saying we wanted to wait until we actually agreed on design guidelines. We haven't done that yet, and so now we have more money, and now we're changing the game. So until we actually have voted on these guidelines, we have told everyone in the city we've put it on hold until we have those guidelines in place and we agree on them. We have not yet done that, so why would we go and spend that money until we do? If we save it until we get those guidelines done, then we have maybe $30,000 in there to do a project that's actually meaningful and is important. So I will vote no.
I call the question? Yeah, go ahead.
Commissioner Norris?
Well, since I just snuck in, I guess I'll say that, I guess in this economic times, I'm thinking of these projects as also job-related. They're really putting people back to work. And so, in many ways, I mean, you hire people to do these projects. So I guess I would argue that we have it in the budget for this fiscal year. Yes, I want the guidelines, but I'm kind of eager to maybe use it, get jobs.
Yeah, just out of curiosity, could we have an idea when we think we could have, I think we ought to have guidelines in place before the fiscal year, so could we have something by May 1st, or?
I would think so. I'd ask the other members of the committee. I think we could.
Mr. Smith?
Well, then why are we voting on it now? Let's vote on it after we...
For next year. The revision.
Oh.
Is it?
I'm still voting no until we have them.
That's not what I'm asking. I'm asking as a subcommittee, can we get the revisions done so that we could decide on by the beginning of May?
Have to be adopted.
Or any other comment? Well, you called for the question, so should we have a vote, please?
Commissioner West?
Aye.
Commissioner Smith?
No.
Commissioner Nocita?
No.
Commissioner Neely? Commissioner Norris? Commissioner Peterson?
Aye.
Commissioner Walters?
Yes.
Commissioner Shaw?
Yes.
Commissioner Crocker?
Yes.
Chair Slack?
Yes, so that would be 8 in favor and 2 against. The motion passes. Okay, wow, that was a long agenda item. Shall we look at minutes of the May 15th retreat? This is 2009. I think there was some confusion at the last meeting about which year those were in, at least on my part. So, anyway, do we have a motion on those minutes?
Adoption?
Approval.
We have a motion and
Second?
a second. Do we have discussion? All in favor? All in favor, aye? Aye. Opposed? The motion carries 10-0. Minutes for the May 3rd, 2010 regular meeting.
Adoption?
I've got an addition, change.
March 3rd? Okay.
Yeah, I think that's the only minutes left for us.
Okay, yeah, what,
If you go down, I think it's the fourth paragraph, Commissioner Neely suggested putting up signage to inform citizens and so forth. You have at the second sentence is Mr. Patterson said the land use approval stated to the developer had to provide a temporary bicycle and pedestrian path during the construction phase. He laughed. Oh, he's there. Okay, good. I believe you also stated the conditions of approval also applied to the reuse of woody material. Is that correct?
I don't remember.
What I would suggest is that the tapes be reviewed on that, because I'm pretty certain, I posed that question earlier, and I'm pretty certain that you would look at the condition of approval on both of those items. So what I'm going to ask is to postpone the bill.
just hold over to the next meeting.
To clarify it.
All right. Let's see. City Manager's report. Mr. Patterson.
Chair, members of the commission, you have, hopefully both of these, you may just have one. At your last meeting with the discussion of the extension of the time for the Cove project, you had asked we come forth with an agreement with CC LLC for 2 items. Those are both hopefully at your place this evening. If not, I have the other here. One has to do with the Cove consultant work product. The other has to agree with no cutting of trees during that 90-day extension. So you may want to approve those, or I don't know if they require an action other than a signature from us, but might be good to have approval just for the record from the Urban Renewal Commission.
How do you all feel? Does somebody want to just accept those? I don't know what the appropriate, it's not really a...
I move we accept both letters.
Is there a second? Second. We have discussion? Roll call?
Commissioner West? She stepped out. Commissioner Smith? Aye. Commissioner Nocita? Commissioner Neely? Commissioner Norris? Commissioner Peterson? Commissioner Walters? Commissioner Shaw? Commissioner Crocker? Chair Slack?
That was 9 with 1 absent, right? 9 in favor? Okay.
And the only other thing, since it's my last Urban Renewal Commission, I just want to express my appreciation to this board for a lot of heavy lifting that you've done. Wish you good luck as you go forth into the future.
I think we want to wish you good luck, too. You've got a whole different kind of future ahead of you.
Mine's probably going to be easier than yours.
I know it can be stressful out in that golf course. So. Anything else?
Yeah, I'm on. One thing I wanted to ask in general for the group, but I just wanted to say, both on this commission and the city commission, I think you've been a joy to work with. We've had our head butts. Some people aren't aware of them. They occurred maybe 2 or 3 years ago. But the point is, I've been able to come in to talk to you, and I think things have been worked out. I think I think we all have strengths and weaknesses. It applies to me. It applies to you. And if somebody would ask me some weaknesses, I probably could come up with a couple. But in terms of
long list of mine.
in terms of the 3, well, including as an interim city manager I've worked with for, you've been I think a superb city manager, and I think you've done a great job, and wish you well in the future.
I second.
We're adjourned.
I did have a request, and it's not something that need to make a decision. It's going to require the next city manager and so forth. We have come to this big question mark on the land. I'll call it the landfill now, and I would like to, at some point or another, invite the representative of the Parker Estate to come to us and talk about perhaps what his vision is. I mean, we can talk about whether a project goes there or not. And of course, as an urban renewal agency, if urban renewal agency funds are being brought forward, then it becomes our focal point. But the thing is, we're not the drivers of what happens there. It's the property owner that's the driver, and I think it would be good if, be it on an informal basis or something, it's open to the public, of course, but to actually have discussions with the property owner of the property owner's vision of how that can operate. We've all had some ideas that we've thrown out, and they're very good, but really it's the property owner that's going to be the driver of it.
Leave that on the desk for the next.
Yes, I thought you would. But I just put that forward.
Adjourned.